Russell Westbrook, DeAndre Jordan, and Kent Bazemore, and a future first-round pick to New York for Evan Fournier, Kemba Walker, and Alec Burks. And I think it's important to look at it in two ways. First, from the Lakers' perspective, having worked in the front office, the one thing we don't like to do is admit we make mistakes, right? We always want to do another deal to kind of compound it. And I think if you're looking at it from the Lakers' viewpoint, the Westbrook trade has been a mistake. And you take back three players that can help you now with, certainly with Walker, Fournier, and Burks. You have players like Ariza, DeAndre Jordan, Kent Bazemore. I mean, you have dead weight contracts that are just sitting there right now. And I know if you're a Knicks fan out there and you're saying, what do we need Russell Westbrook for, right? Two words, listless and lethargic. That's where I see this Knicks roster. It doesn't hurt you financially because your next big time when you can have cap spaces in 2023. You have 9 players that will still earn between 1.5 and 14.5 million. You've got all your draft assets. It's almost like next year could be a bridge year. And if that next disgruntled all-star like Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard becomes available, you still have all those trade assets to go out and make a deal.
Well, you said, why should Knicks fans want to do it? And I can't even tell anymore if Stephen A. is a Knicks fan. He seems so on the fence about it. But since we have a sort of Knicks fan sitting right next to me, Stephen A., would you make that trade?
First of all, I got a problem. with Mr.
Just one?
I got a problem with Mr. Marks. Let me tell you something, man. You don't know that you sitting here making this proposal, this fictional proposal, in front of a Knicks fan? And don't tell me you don't know I'm a Knicks fan, Malika Andrews. Why you think I'm so damn miserable? Because the Knicks are miserable. That's why, and they have a contagious effect that has contaminated New Yorkers and Knicks fans everywhere right now. That's the bottom line. So if you're going to sit up there and call Mr. Sean Marks, you're going to sit up there with this fictional trade proposal, could you do it with some enthusiasm? Could you stick your chest out? Could you say Stephen A.? We're going to ignore you for a second, Malika Andrews. Could you say Stephen A.? I got something for you. Could you make me feel better? Could you do that? You're sitting there, well, I mean, they could do this and they could do that. And I'm like, what? That's not going to help us have a decent year next year. I need your help, Sean. I need you to tell me, yo, listen. Bobby, I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep calling you Sean. Bobby, I apologize, Bobby. I don't know why you keep telling me, hey, listen, here's what I'm saying to you. I like the thought of Russell Westbrook at the Garden. I like what you just proposed. I just need you to do it more enthusiastically because I know you know the damn NBA. And you saying it with just a monotone voice is making me say, wait a minute. Is there something behind this that I don't know about? Because that's a decent damn proposal he's making there. But Bobby doesn't sound as enthusiastic as I expected you to.
Well, I wasn't sure what your reaction was going to be, so that's kind of why I was a little hesitant. But hey, here. He'll get you 45 wins. He'll do what he did in Washington. He'll get you to the first round. And I think what this roster is right now, I don't even know if it's a play-in team. And they're not right now.
You're right.
Well,
right.
Part of the reason also that perhaps he didn't have more enthusiasm, which I love. You have to go listen to the entire Low Post podcast because there are so many interesting trades that you and Zach Lowe and Tim Bontemps said that you all propose. But as Adrian Wojnarowski has reported, as Dave McMenamin has reported, Russell Westbrook is being viewed as an immovable piece. So as much as this is fun,
it's fictional.
It's fictional, and maybe that has something to do with the monotone.
No player in the NBA is untradeable.
That is fair.
We all know that.
All I know is
that
if Zach Lowe had said this to me on y'all podcast, he would have been smiling and left and trying to sell me on it, as opposed to just saying, I don't know if you want to do this, but this is an idea.
I don't know what version 4 points per game. So integrating Kyrie Irving on a part-time role, that's also been a little bit of an adjustment. He's been able to play in 10 out of 16 games since coming back on January 5th. And even though he's averaging almost 24 points per game, the Nets have won just 4 of those games. So back here with Chiney Ogwumike and Stephen A. Smith, we have spent so much time talking about the Nets this season. And they entered the year the betting favorites to win the title. And they actually still are the favorites to win the title. And that's with Kyrie Irving not being vaccinated and being on a part-time basis. That's with Kevin Durant and James Harden both missing time. But Chiney, should they still be considered the favorite?
They should not. Honestly, there's too many ifs, ands, or buts for them to be considered title favorites, because at this point, we have yet to really see them consistently being pieced together. Not saying that they can't win a championship, but I equate this to them walking a tightrope. It's a very, very tight rope. Like before, maybe it was a little thicker, but now it's like floss, okay? And when I look at the overall landscape of the NBA, and if this is who's going to win the NBA championship, I'm looking at the Suns. I'm looking potentially at the Warriors. I'm looking at those Eastern Conference standings where Giannis and the Bucks, they know what it feels like. They know what it takes to get back there. There's so many teams that have fewer question marks around them than the Nets, saying, hopefully KD's healthy. Hopefully James Harden, ups his scoring. Hopefully Kyrie is available. I know we love favorites when it comes to betting and the odds, and we love that amalgamation of talent at the top. This big three, I mean, remember when they came together, it was like setting and destroying all offensive records. We just have yet to see that consistently for me to say this team is a sure bet to win a championship.
I don't disagree with you, because I've got the Warriors winning the chip. The Suns, mad respect and love to them, and they could win it.
Yep.
I got 2 of my top 5 MVP candidates being from the Suns, for crying out loud. But is Steph Curry going to continue to shoot the way he was shooting before Kevin Porter got on his nerves and he dropped 40? I mean, that's the Steph Curry I know and love. Klay Thompson, he's coming. He's coming. Come playoff time, he'll be ready. Draymond Green, hasn't he been out the last several weeks? I think he'll be back. James Wiseman at some point is going to be there. And so when I look at that with Toscano Anderson and Gary Payton II and Jordan Poole and these boys, I'm like, no, I got the Warriors. Plus Wiggins, of course, can't forget the All-Star. Plus they play defense. But here's what I will say. I can't shun those who have the Brooklyn Nets as favorites for one reason and one reason.
Why is that?
You can't stop them. When the 3 of them are on the floor together, you cannot stop them. Let's understand something. Kyrie Irving is a superstar. And James Harden is having an off year in some people's eyes. He's averaging 22, 10, and 8. At some point in time, again, as we get closer and closer to the playoffs, we know what time it is. And then you look at Kevin Durant, when healthy, arguably the best player on the planet in some people's eyes. To me, no debating at all. But look at Patty Mills and the contribution he's made. Look at Claxton, Jones and these boys, and Brown. And I'm looking at these cats, and I'm like this. Even Blake Griffin, he could dunk again. I don't know if you noticed. He told
me that in
he's not in Detroit anymore. So suddenly he can dunk. Now that he's out of the Motor City, he can actually dunk the basketball again with his 6'9" self. I'm just saying, I'm looking at the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm like, my God, you can't stop them. But the Warriors defend, and that's why, to me, the Warriors.
The only thing stopping them is availability.
Right.
And themselves, right? Because they haven't had that availability for the past 2 years. Zach Lowe said something interesting on the Lowe Post on his podcast recently, and he said that he thinks the Nets are at risk potentially of being the greatest theoretical team in NBA history, because theoretically, on paper, everything you were saying was absolutely fantastic. But if it doesn't come to fruition this year, if those rumblings, those murmurs about James Harden, and he did not sign that contract extension, he can still make the most money by staying in Brooklyn. If that comes to fruition, then it's all about what coulda, woulda, and shoulda. Because, Stephen A., you're right. Talent-wise, no one can stop them. But we have yet to see all of that talent all together for an extended period.
Can I say something with both of y'all here in attendance? I've said this before, but I'm going to repeat it again. I said it months ago, but I'm dead serious about this. If these brothers do not win a championship, do you understand that Kevin Durant is on the verge for being recognized more so for the guy that left Steph Curry to go with Kyrie Irving than he is for the 2 chips and the 2 finals MVPs? I didn't say we'll forget him. I didn't say we'll diminish him, because he's a champion. He's a 2-time champion, a 2-time NBA Finals MVP. Listen, I'm saying headline. What he'll be known more for, what we'll be talking about. People go like this. I'll give you a perfect example. This is what Malika will do.
Okay.
He's a 2-time champion. He's a 2-time NBA Finals MVP. Can you believe he left Steph for Kyrie? See the difference?
I hear you, and obviously a championship would move that needle incredibly far, but I also think coming back the way he has and the way he did from his injury, it's hard to overlook that in this whole conversation about what he did.
Nope, it's not. You know why? Because he's so phenomenal. Kevin Durant is so phenomenal. So
He's
phenomenal.
in the conversation for
one of the greatest players ever.
I think that's it right there. Bam.
And that's it.
I think when we think of Kevin Durant, no matter if he wins a championship or not, we're going to say that as a 7-footer, he was the greatest scorer, the most gifted. And now when it comes to teams,
live from Los Angeles.
Coming up on NBA Today, the Battle of LA last night, it had a Hollywood ending. And today, the winning team made a big trade. Plus, I'd say that Klay Thompson is back to full strength. My goodness, a performance that even he was impressed by. And Trae Young and the Hawks, what did they do to the streaking Suns? We've got all of that and more. NBA Today starts right now. Welcome to NBA Today. I'm Malika Andrews, joined on set here by two-time WNBA All-Star Chiney Ogwumike. Woj is standing by to update us on a Clippers trade that happened just moments ago. But first, I'd like to start with the wild night that happened in Crypto.com arena between the Lakers and the Clippers. That was last night, so there you see them. The Lakers, remember, they're still without LeBron James. I want to start in the first half, though, because check Carmelo here. He lands. He's holding his leg up a little bit. He appears to have injured that leg. He would not return to the game, but really things got heated up in the fourth quarter, Janae. This is when people were texting me saying it looked dead early on. Not anymore.
No, you got to stay up. The final minute was pretty much another game in itself. You saw Russ with a nice jumper, but Reggie Jackson, you'll see him a lot here in the clutch with a nice reverse right there. But hold up, wait a minute. Malik Monk knocks down the three. That's where he loves to be, behind the arc. The Lakers, they go up 2 off of that big shot.
Well, even LeBron James tweeting about that shot. Bang, bang, he says, but not so fast.
Yeah, hey, anything you can do, I can do too, right? That's what the Clippers' energy was all night. Marcus Morris Sr. right there had a huge night, I think 29. And the Clippers, their lead by 1. Now, to this play right here. This is what LA wants to see, whether you're a Clippers or a Lakers fan. AD is a showstopper, so the Lakers take the lead. But again, Reggie Jackson. I mean, spin move layups, like where's the help defense? He was feeling himself. Now this play right here, this is what the Battle of LA comes down to. A final shot, and AD falls short.
Not quite. Let's see those final 2 buckets one more time.
So that was the actual game winner, but right here, AD, it's hard to make a floating floater, you know, especially when you're going full steam ahead.
Well, and Reggie Jackson literally danced into his post-game interview with Allie LaForce. So this game featured 6 go-ahead field goals in the final 65 seconds of regulation. That's tied for the most in a game over the last 25 seasons, but it's almost the most important game since February of 2017. So for more on the news for both of those teams, our senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski joins us now. So Woj, the Clippers, they just made a trade. What details can you give us?
Yeah, Portland and the Clippers acquiring Robert Covington and Norman Powell in this trade with LA, and LA sending off Justice Winslow, Eric Bledsoe, Keon Johnson, and a 2025 second-round pick that will come via the Detroit Pistons. And for the Clippers, listen, this is them trying to set themselves up with Norman Powell, you know, certainly a high-level two-way guard who has multiple years left on his contract, just signed that extension in Portland. And now you've got a high-level scoring guard who also defends his position very well. And for the Blazers, listen, the emergence of Anthony Simons this season, their terrific young combo guard, allows them to move off of the rest of Powell's money. And you're going to want to sign Simons to an extension this summer. And both these teams, Malika, they're going to continue to be active between now and the trade deadline next week. I think there's more moves for both to make. But I think for LA, now the chance, they're looking down the road. Norman Powell's under contract, and they have a player who, really fits in well with PG and Kawhi Leonard.
And we will be covering all of those moves as they're made. But Woj, yesterday after the game, Clippers coach Ty Lue, he said that we know Kawhi's probably not going to come back. That's a direct quote. And he also said, we don't know the status of PG. So what can you tell us about the status of that Clippers superstar duo?
I think it's always been something of a long shot of Kawhi Leonard playing this season, but the Clippers haven't ruled it out. They just got to see where they are later in the year as his rehab progresses, where the team is, how he feels, what it looks like long term for him, because that's the important part for the Clippers. They haven't closed that door yet, but I think Ty Lue is echoing the idea, that it's still a fairly short window with an ACL injury for him to play again this season and what's left in the season when he might be ready. And then Paul George, listen, this is an injury that they've hoped would heal with time. They pushed back, his tests, some more testing into February. They'll see how it looks, how it's healed. Of course, you want, if you can, to avoid surgery on it. But again, I think there's still uncertainty around both. But the trade today, I think, really sets up the Clippers long term. I think for both teams, you look at projecting them out. It made sense for both sides.
Absolutely. And as Ty Lue said, Paul George is going to have an MRI in the coming weeks. Woj, thank you so much for joining us and for all of your reporting. So I want to stick with the Clippers here, though, because they won the game last night. But I want to open it up to our panel of Chiney Ogwumike and also welcome in NBA champion Kendrick Perkins. And Perk, I want to start with you here. And we also have Zach Lowe joining us. Perk, where do the Clippers go from here after what you heard from Woj?
Well, one thing I know about Ty Lue, from him coaching me in Boston and coaching me in Cleveland, Ty Lue wants to win. Give him some guys that he could go out there and compete with, and he's going to figure it out. And I think where the Clippers are right now, they're right the 8th seed, sitting at 500, and they're like, hold on. If we could get a Norman Powell and Robert Covington, which they did, and maybe a Kawhi Leonard in March or April along with a Paul George, hey, we can really make a run at this, because what they figured out is that Reggie Jackson could hold his own. Zubac has been playing well. So the Clippers are saying, while we're sitting up here talking about Golden State, Phoenix, the Lakers, Memphis, all these other teams, they're saying, wait a second, our aspirations is still to win a championship, and I actually love this move by the Clippers.
Zach, what do you make of this trade?
I think it's a great trade for the Clippers. Perk is dead on. Steve Ballmer, Paul George is hurt, Kawhi Leonard's hurt. He doesn't believe in throwing seasons away. This trade helps them right now, but it's more about next year. This is a salvo from the Clippers. We are going into next season hoping to be the favorites to win the NBA championship with Kawhi and Paul George back. Let's break it down. Robert Covington is a free agent this summer. Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow were not in the Clippers' long-term plans. This deal could really just be Keon Johnson and a second-round pick for Norm Powell. If that's the case, that's a home run for the Clippers. Norm Powell is a great fit for them. And by the way, they can still re-sign Robert Covington. I think Steve Ballmer can afford a pretty big luxury tax payment, and it's maybe a hedge against what if Nick Batum opts out of his deal and leaves in free agency. Well, then we can have Covington sort of do that same role. He gets a home run for the Clippers. The Blazers, I think it's a little bit disappointing return, but this is for the Clippers. This is a signal to the league. We are coming in loaded next season.
Yeah, it's going to be a good day when all of us agree. I loved this trade, for both parties involved, offloading the checkbooks for Portland. But more importantly, when it comes to competitive teams that we have high expectations for, that's the Clippers. And, if there was a theme from last night to tonight, their veterans lead the way for them. Yeah. Reggie Jackson, if you look at Serge Ibaka having a big output, Marcus Morris Sr., plus the great coaching of Ty Lue. Then you add in a Norm Powell, who, shout out to Norm Powell, he trains with someone that I know, AJ Diggs. And so to bring him back to LA, my trainer, and then also adding, just development. They've done a good job of developing the guys that they've drafted, but more importantly, putting together a group that is very veteran, very experienced, and very poised. So next year, they're going to be right in the conversation, as Zach said, for championship.
Well, and you mentioned it, Chiney. I mean, Serge Ibaka, I was in the building last night, Perk, and Serge Ibaka, I mean, he was so instrumental for what they were able to do and the energy that they were able to kind of put together. But the key for him has been that he's been healthy recently. And you know who else is healthy? Klay Thompson. So I want to stay in the Western Conference here and show you what Klay did last night, because he is certainly back now. He was playing against the Kings. The Warriors were hosting them in Chase Center. So the first half, it was all Klay Thompson from deep, Chiney.
Yes, the sharpshooter, wildly streaky Klay Thompson is back. And by the way, Steph, he was like setting him up perfectly all night. Look at that dime! Right behind the head, take nice little hesitation dribble to his sweet spot. Then you keep going. All right, you saw Curry do it from the right. Now he did it with his left hand. How wild is that? One-handed passes to his splash, bro. And the Warriors love to get out in transition. I mean, is anyone going to tell him, like, that might be his spot right now?
Someone needs to guard him. Because clearly, look, where does he run?
Right to the same corner. But, hey, I think he was 5 for 5, maybe 6 for 6 from the half at that point.
You said transition. We'll take a look at this. Klay Thompson steals the ball, and easy bucket. Between that and Jonathan Kuminga, we'll see that bucket a little bit later.
I love when Steph dances.
The Warriors win it. There's the dancing, and here's them after the game.
I felt so dang good, and everything I've been through, I just really appreciate nights like this. The shooting part is so much fun, and when you see hard work paying off, it just hits different now.
Lets it fly, got another one! Klay Thompson, just ridiculous!
He can get hot at any moment. He's got that look in his eye. We love to see that. It's a big boost for the whole team.
Happy with the night, but I want to build off this. I want to shoot the lights out all the time.
Lots of green on Klay's shot chart last night. So Thompson's 23 points are tied for his most since his return. And he also made 7 threes for the first time since coming back, and the 31st time in his career. That's the 4th most in the NBA history, behind Steph, James Harden, and Damian Lillard. So, Janae, what happens if the Warriors get this version of Klay moving forward?
The Warriors can really win a championship. It's not like an if, this is a reality that they can have. And I'll just say this, Klay Thompson, he's starting to get his mojo. It takes a few games for you to get your legs, and then finally you get your legs and then your shots right under, and you find your sweet spots. Now, Steph, if we see more of the Steph that we've always known, not necessarily like the last few months,
right,
which he's allowed the last few months, if we get Klay, Steph, plus all-star Wiggins, and then a healthy Draymond back, there's not necessarily a team, if they're playing their best basketball at the right time, that can impede them from potentially getting to the NBA Finals.
Well, and when Klay plays like that, it actually makes it easier on Steph, because all of a sudden he's not getting the defensive attention. You have to pick your poison. But it's interesting that you mentioned Draymond Green, because, Perk, I want to ask you about the Warriors rookie Jonathan Kuminga. He's averaging 18.5 points per game on 64% shooting over his last 2 contests. So how is his play forcing the Warriors to handle his rotation spot, particularly when, as Chiney said, Draymond Green, James Wiseman, when they return?
Well, it's not going to affect Draymond Green, because Draymond Green and Kuminga could play together. We all know Draymond Green is that point forward. He initiate the offense, but Kuminga is that lob threat. Kuminga is that guy that he could be that JaVale McGee for them. But I knew he was athletic. I didn't know he was that skilled. He's very skilled for us, creating to be able to drive and get to the paint, finishing right and left hand, dunking the ball, finishing through contact. But here's the thing. We keep saying when Wiseman gets back, but Wiseman is going to have to earn those minutes, because if I'm Steve Kerr, there's no way that I'm keeping this young stud, Kuminga, out of the lineup. Wiseman is going to have to earn or wait his time, because the way that this man is balling, he fits perfect with that offense. I mean, so much attention is around the perimeter with Steph, Klay, Andrew Wiggins, because of the multiple pick-to-pick actions. When he's diving to the basket and rolling with his athleticism, they're hard to stop, and he just fits in perfect. So I understand people were waiting on Wiseman, but he's going to have to earn those minutes from Kuminga.
And we all worked the 2021 NBA draft, and the biggest question around Kuminga was, how bad does he want it? The game of basketball, will he take possessions off? Perk is right. He's earned it, and so I think you're right. That added center of James Wiseman will help, but you're going to have to outplay some of your competition, which elevates your competition, which puts them into, producer Steve, yes, the championship conversation.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a little bit more.
Moody Moses.
Moody.
Moses.
I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a little bit more of the Warriors and a little bit more of Jonathan Kuminga later in our show in Top of the Top, because whoo, buddy. But still ahead on NBA Today, no list is perfect, so we're going to dive into the biggest snubs when it comes to the All-Star reserves. And Ant-Man, he had himself a game against the Pistons, but it's what he did after the game that is going to put a smile on your face. Plus, Perk takes us on a stroll down memory lane, because Big Fella's fondest KG Celtics memories are ahead of Big Ticket's Big Honor.
Today, hosted by Malika Andrews, live from Los Angeles.
Coming up on NBA Today, the Battle of LA last night, it had a Hollywood ending. And today, the winning team made a big trade. Plus, I'd say that Klay Thompson is back to full strength. My goodness, a performance that even he was impressed by. And Trae Young and the Hawks, what did they do to the streaking Suns? We've got all of that and more. NBA Today starts right now. Welcome to NBA Today. I'm Malika Andrews, joined on set here by two-time WNBA All-Star Chiney Ogwumike. Woj is standing by to update us on a Clippers trade that happened just moments ago. But first, I'd like to start with the wild night that happened in Crypto.com arena between the Lakers and the Clippers. That was last night, so there you see them. The Lakers, remember, they're still without LeBron James. I want to start in the first half, though, because check Carmelo here. He lands. He's holding his leg up a little bit. He appears to have injured that leg. He would not return to the game, but really things got heated up in the fourth quarter, Janae. This is when people were texting me saying it looked dead early on. Not anymore.
No, you got to stay up. The final minute was pretty much another game in itself. You saw Russ with a nice jumper, but Reggie Jackson, you'll see him a lot here in the clutch with a nice reverse right there. But hold up, wait a minute. Malik Monk knocks down the three. That's where he loves to be, behind the arc. The Lakers, they go up 2 off of that big shot.
Well, even LeBron James tweeting about that shot. Bang, bang, he says, but not so fast.
Yeah, hey, anything you can do, I can do too, right? That's what the Clippers' energy was all night. Marcus Morris Sr. right there had a huge night, I think 29. And the Clippers, their lead by 1. Now, to this play right here. This is what LA wants to see, whether you're a Clippers or a Lakers fan. AD is a showstopper, so the Lakers take the lead. But again, Reggie Jackson. I mean, spin move layups, like where's the help defense? He was feeling himself. Now this play right here, this is what the battle of LA comes down to. A final shot, and AD falls short.
Not quite. Let's see those final 2 buckets one more time.
So that was the actual game winner, but right here, AD, it's hard to make a floating floater, you know, especially when you're going full steam ahead.
Well, and Reggie Jackson literally danced into his post-game interview with Allie LaFour. So this game featured 6 go-ahead field goals in the final 65 seconds of regulation. That's tied for the most in a game over the last 25 seasons, but it's almost the most important game since February of 2017. So for more on the news for both of those teams, our senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski joins us now. So Woj, the Clippers, they just made a trade. What details can you give us?
Yeah, Portland and the Clippers acquiring Robert Covington and Norman Powell in this trade, with LA and LA sending off Justice Winslow, Eric Bledsoe, Keon Johnson, and a 2025 second-round pick that will come via the Detroit Pistons. And for the Clippers, listen, this is them trying to set themselves up with Norman Powell, you know, certainly a high-level two-way guard who has multiple years left on his contract, just signed that extension in Portland. And now you've got a high-level scoring guard who also defends his position very well. And for the Blazers, listen, the emergence of Anthony Simons this season, you know, their terrific young combo guard, you know, allows them to move off of the rest of Powell's money. And you're going to want to sign Simons to an extension this summer. And both these teams, Malika, they're going to continue to be active between now and the trade deadline next week. I think there's more moves for both to make. But I think for LA, now the chance, you know, they're looking down the road. Norman Powell's under contract, and they have a player who, you know, really fits in well with PG.